Okay, welcome everyone to this afternoon's presentation. I'm going to ask that you, keep yourselves on mute. This is technically a meeting as far as Zoom is concerned, but we are going to present to you today this partnership that the Planning Commission has struck up with DVRPC. We're calling it a pilot project because it really is a pilot. We are the first county to work with DVRPC on a project like this, but we are hoping to explain a little bit about DVRPC's technical assistance program and the sidewalk analysis tool that they've created. This is a scene somewhere in Montgomery County. You can see they could probably use a sidewalk here, but we're hoping that this is an opportunity for everyone to learn how to use this tool and make stronger applications to our Montco 2040 grant program and other funding opportunities. Next slide. So we'll start with some introductions. I'm Ann Levick-Gruberger. I have worked for the Montgomery County Planning Commission for a very long time at this point, but at this point I am the section manager for the county planning section here, and I oversee the Montco 2040 implementation grant program. Logan, would you like to go next?
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Logan Axelson. I work for the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission in our Office of Transit, Bike, and Pedestrian Planning. And I'm leading our regional sidewalk development program this fiscal year. And this collaboration with Montgomery County Planning Commission is a big part and really our first outreach effort around that program. And the ultimate goal of the program is to help communities throughout the region sort of connect their pedestrian networks, build sidewalks where they know they will serve the most people or make the biggest impact, or repair sidewalks where possible, with the understanding that there aren't a lot of great funding sources out there for local sidewalk construction. So we're trying to tackle that problem, and we're going to talk a bit today about how we do that. We have a technical analysis that Erin's going to walk you through in just a moment that I think sheds a whole lot of light on these issues and is really a really impressive tool. I'm really happy with the way it looks, and Erin did a terrific job on that. So maybe Erin, you can introduce yourself next.
Sure, thanks Logan. So my name is Aaron Fraint. I work at DVRPC as the Associate Manager of the Office of Mobility Analysis and Design. And as Logan just mentioned, I'll be demoing a tool in a little bit that will hopefully illustrate how we can sort of facilitate the process of filling some gaps or otherwise improving the sidewalk network across the county.
Greg, would you like to say hello too?
Sure. Since it's a meeting and not a webinar, I can just say hi. I'm Greg Rukevich, Director of Transportation Planning at DVRPC, and we're really excited about the collaboration with MCPC, and I'll hand it back to our team.
Okay, next slide. So I would say in the short period of time that I've been working closely with the Montco 2040 grant program, pedestrian improvement projects are really popular. They're very visible, and there are a lot of public benefits that can be had for putting in sidewalk improvement projects, crosswalks, new wayfinding signage. Next slide. But not everyone knows where to start. We certainly, even our most developed communities have gaps in their sidewalk network or areas that could be improved upon. The top two images are right adjacent to the Ardmore train station in Lower Marion Township. The way it looks on the left is how it currently looks, well, minus all of the construction that is happening around there on the train station. But the image on the right is from a walk audit that we did for downtown Ardmore, where we took away the cars and we reimagined what's currently used as parking as a little parklet of sorts to expand upon the pedestrian area that's there and to make a safer route to the train station. And below is actually some images from a recently completed Montco 2040 project, I believe in Lower Frederick Township, where there was no sidewalk before. And the idea to make a more of a visible and usable connection for people. And on the right is the end result. these are projects that can come to fruition with a little bit of creativity and funding. Next slide. So we do have a variety of sources of funding for sidewalk projects, specifically the Montco 2040 Implementation Grant Program, which we'll talk more about, I guess, today. But these other programs as well, we have the county's Transportation Improvement Program and a variety of other statewide funding programs that allow for sidewalks and pedestrian projects as part of what they fund. And we also work with a lot of communities on pedestrian related projects. Some communities are getting funding through WalkWorks to create active transportation plans or complete streets policies. Others work with the PennDOT Connects program, and our staff of planners here have been busy actually doing walk audits or safe routes to school work. Just this morning, I went to the Walk to School Day event at Roslyn Elementary School. Today's National Walk to School Day. So maybe you had a chance to do some of that yourself today. Next slide. So a little bit more on the implementation grant program. At this point, we are about to enter our 7th year of funding. That will be in 2022. We are working on guidebook revisions to this program, although the eligible projects are largely the same. So what's eligible through the Montco 2040 Implementation Grant Program? A lot of walkability improvements, sidewalk and pedestrian connections, trail connections, park improvements, downtown improvements or improvements to school routes or public transit facilities, crosswalks, wayfinding signage, things of that nature. These are all really crucial projects, I think, for a lot of our communities. Next slide. So I'm going to turn things over to Aaron, who is going to talk a little bit about the tool that DVRPC has created and how we think this tool might be able to help strengthen your applications to the Montco 2040 Implementation Grant Program and how you might be able to use it for your own work.
Thanks, Anne. So as I mentioned before, my name is Aaron Fraint, and I'm going to show you this tool. I'll start by showing a couple screenshots, talking through the process. And at the end, I'll share a link to the map so you can load it up on your own computer and click around and test it out yourself. And should time allow, and I think we will have time, I'll also do a quick live demo at the very end. Okay, so when you go to the map, this is the first page that you see. There's a landing page which sort of introduces the users to the process that we went through to build this. So there's a brief mention of some of the background, a little bit about the methodology, the data sets that we included. So we're analyzing access to essential services. And so here we have a little bit of documentation about like where we pulled these essential services from. And on the right side of the screen, we have a little video that you can click on, and it will play a tutorial that sort of illustrates the process of using the map. So for those that don't have the benefit of a webinar, they still get a little bit of a introduction that way. To get to the map from here, all you have to do is click the big green button on the left side, and you're taken to a screen that looks like this. So this is the main landing page of the map when you first load it up. And so on this map, we can see a number of things right off the bat, including Montgomery County with the outline, and then all of the municipalities within. And then each essential service location is shown as a dot on this map. And the color of the dot is reflective of the sidewalk connectivity of each of those locations. And so the color ramp of green through yellow to red is indicating how well connected is that location to its surroundings by its existing sidewalk network. So if the color is green, that means it's quite well connected. If it's red, that means there's really not much connectivity using the existing sidewalks within its surrounding area. In a couple of cases, there's actually some dots that are shown with white. And these are locations where there's literally no sidewalks at all in the vicinity. So it's not just like poorly connected, it's just not connected at all in those few cases. And the other big thing to take note of here is in the top left corner of the screen, we have 2 different drop-down menus that are provided to us. And we can use these to filter the map, and zoom to places of interest and very quickly sort of find out, about whatever it is that we want to learn about. So as a starting point, the drop down on the left allows you to select a municipality. So this will give you a list of every municipality within the county. And then when you select your municipality, it will zoom you to that location and show you all of the gaps in the sidewalk network within. And so in this example, I have selected Springfield Township, and then the map takes me to Springfield. It outlines it with like a pinkish reddish outline. And then inside the municipality in blue, it's now showing me every single missing sidewalk within that particular municipality. Now, it's worth mentioning that these gaps are places that don't currently have a sidewalk, but where one might be expected. And this is built upon the premise that pretty much every roadway, except for limited access highways, could theoretically have a sidewalk on both sides of the street. But of course, this is a very high level analysis at the regional scale, or in this case, the county scale. And at any given location, there could be particular reasons why a sidewalk on that particular spot might not make sense, whether it's because of property lines or right-of-way geometry or just land use purposes more generally. So for what it's worth, this is a very high-level analysis, and not every blue line on here is something that ought to get built, but it's more just sort of an accounting of everything that might be missing. Now, the other filter that we have at our disposal here on the right side of this box is going to filter the points themselves. And so with this dropdown, you have the ability to select between all of our different essential service types. So this includes categories like schools, parks, grocery stores, shopping centers, transit stops, and a whole host of others. And they came from a variety of data sources. So whether or not you filter by dots or filter by municipality, you can also just use this map normally. So you can zoom in and out. So if you have a mouse with a wheel on it, you can just use your wheel to zoom in. If you're on a laptop, the trackpad will let you zoom in and out. And if you prefer using your keyboard, the plus and minus buttons will also allow you to zoom. And then from there, the workflow is basically click on a point to learn more about it. And so in this case, I'm showing the example of what happens when you click on a shopping center, although you get the same visualization for every category of point. So in this case, I've clicked on Astor Plaza, one of the shopping centers in the county. And here we can now see a whole number of things that weren't previously visible before. So first off, we'll notice that the dot that was clicked on gets like a black outline, just showing that this is the selected location. And I apologize if you can hear my daughter screaming in the background. It's nap time right now. So we also have two blobs taking up most of the screen here. We've got one in green and one in purple. And we also have some blue lines. And so these blue lines, as I mentioned previously, are the gaps that are essentially missing in the network. And the blobs, the green and the blue polygons, they're showing us walk sheds. And so in green, what it's showing us is how far can you get in 1 mile on foot from the selected location. And this analysis is built in a way where we sort of end our shape either when you hit 1 mile on foot or if the sidewalk network ends. And so whichever happens first is essentially what limits the shape of this polygon. And then the purple one is a very similar analysis, but instead of using the sidewalk network, we're using the center lines at large. And so this is used as a way to model a potential future scenario where every roadway has sidewalks on both sides and every intersection has a crosswalk across each of its legs. And so by comparing the relative size and shape between the green and the purple polygons, we're able to get a sense of how well connected is this place by its existing sidewalk network. And so here in this particular example, we can see kind of to the south of the selected point, the sidewalk network is pretty good. It's well connected. You can get pretty much a mile going south. But to the north of this location, there isn't a lot of connectivity. And as a result, you can't really use the sidewalk network to get northbound from this location. And then the other thing that we can do here is we can sort of ask the map to tell us more about any individual gap. And we can also do the same with existing sidewalks, which I'll illustrate a little bit later. So in this case, I've clicked on one of the gaps that seems to be constraining accessibility around this location, and the map view changes a little bit. So now what it's showing me is essentially highlighting all of the different nearby points of interest that would potentially benefit from this improvement. And so these are all of the locations that are within 1 mile walking on foot from this location that I've selected. And on the left side, it now shows us a little box that just summarizes the kinds of points that are nearby. And so here we can see that we have a whole slew of destinations that would potentially benefit from this kind of improvement, including lots of bus stops, but then also some healthcare facilities, food stores, shopping centers, and so on. So now what I'd like to do is show a couple of different case studies that illustrate using this tool in an applied fashion. And so our first case study is going to take place in Lower Merion. We're going to look at Remington Road, right across the street from Wynwood Valley Park. And as we can see here in this image from Google Street View, there's no sidewalks on either side of the street here. So this is a situation where we would be looking at what the impact would be of filling one particular gap. And so on this map, what I've done is I used the first drop down to zoom to Lower Merion Township, and then just moving around on the map, I found the park in question. I then zoomed in and clicked on the specific line that we would be potentially improving in this imaginary project concept. And then we got, this is the result that we see. So there's a little pin on the map showing where I've selected. If you were to zoom in, you'd see it's highlighted as well. But it zooms out to show you all of the points nearby that would potentially benefit from this improvement. So again, we're seeing a lot of bus stops here, but also some schools, parks, food stores, and a library that would potentially benefit by having this within its 1 mile walkshed. The other case study that we wanted to quickly look at is going to take place in Norristown. And this is a case where we have an existing sidewalk that shows up in DVRPC's data. However, it's not the best sidewalk when it comes to accessibility. So we're going to talk about Summit Street near Hancock Elementary School. And so this is a case, as we can see in this photograph, where there is a pathway. However, it's made out of brick. There's a lot of roots kind of pushing the bricks up. And in some places, the weeds and other vegetation growing through the cracks almost hides the fact that the sidewalk is there. So although it technically exists, one could easily argue the case that improvements could be made to make accessibility better around here. So here I followed basically a similar pattern to what I showed just a moment ago, where in this case, I zoomed to Norristown. I then identified the location where I wanted to learn more. I zoomed in and I clicked, in this case, on the existing sidewalk line, which is shown in gray. And then it gave me the same kind of summary that I saw just a moment ago. And now it's telling me for this existing sidewalk, if we were to make an improvement, this is the list of locations that would potentially benefit. And so what we're imagining here is that this is something that could very easily feed into the narrative portion of a sidewalk grant application, or really anytime you're justifying like why one particular sidewalk improvement project might be worthwhile. This is the kind of information that you can help use to make your case. And so it's not exactly intended to prioritize one sidewalk over another, although we could do things in that space. But by and large, this is really just to get a back of the envelope sense of like, what would this sidewalk improvement do for me and the area nearby, and which kinds of places would stand to benefit. So that all said, I think we have plenty of time. So if there's interest, I'll do a live demo just to illustrate just how easy this thing is to use. I see we had a message in the chat though. If that's a question, I can answer that real quick. Oh, we got the link. Okay, so yeah, for those of you at home, actually, we have a new link, which I will send momentarily. This is our testing one, but it's all the same, so it'll still work.
I'll put it in there for you.
All right, thank you, Logan. So anyway, I have that map loaded up right here in my other tab. So I'll just move over there and now just do a quick live demo of this. So here we are. This is the same map we were looking at as a screenshot. Now it's in my browser. And just as an example, I'm going to illustrate a workflow that might be relevant in, let's say, like a safe routes to school context. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to filter all of the points on the map to public schools. So to do that, I'm just going to grab my right-handed drop-down and choose public schools. And then right off the bat, we can now see only those points that are relevant for a public school. I can also, if I want to, I can hover my mouse over any of these points and it will give me a little pop-up that tells me the name of the location as well as its sidewalk coverage. And so this is a 0 to 100% metric that essentially tells us the difference in size between the purple and the green polygons that we were looking at earlier. So if they're the same size, that'll be 100% and we'll get a green color on this map. Whereas if it's a very small green polygon compared to the purple one, then we might get a red color here showing that there's a big difference in size. So anyway, for the sake of this demonstration, I will click on Elkins Park School in Cheltenham. And so now that I've done that, we can see, like we saw before, we now have our two different walk sheds appear on the screen. We have a little graph that shows up on the left side that gives a summary of the areas of each of these walk sheds. And then again, in blue, we have the lines that illustrate the specific gaps in question that are inside the 1 mile walk shed of this location. And so kind of like what we saw before, there's some areas where sidewalk coverage is pretty good. So to the southwest of this school, we can see that although there are some gaps in the sidewalk network, there's enough sidewalk coverage that it still allows you to sort of make your way through the neighborhoods solely using sidewalks and crosswalks, even if it's maybe not the most direct path. That said, if we look kind of to the northeast of the school, we can see that there's a lot of missing sidewalks and they're located in a fashion that really prevents you from going in that direction at all if you wanted to be fully on the sidewalk network. And so, if you're trying to improve sidewalk connectivity around the school, perhaps one thing you might look closely into is, which particular roadways to the northeast would allow me to tap into other sidewalks that might be nearby or otherwise seem to be important for circulation. And so, just to use this example a little bit more fully, let's say that, maybe Church Road, which is right around the corner and an important connector road in the area. What if we wanted to improve sidewalks on Church? So in this case, I'm going to click on this line right next to Church Road. And it's now showing me that's where I've clicked. And then on the left side, we've got the refreshed view showing us exactly what would happen if this particular sidewalk gap were to be filled. And so here we can see that in addition to this school that sort of brought us here and got us thinking about this location, there's also a whole slew of bus stops and parks and food stores nearby that would also stand to benefit. And so this is a really handy way of both finding gaps, but then also getting an understanding of like what else could stand to benefit if you were to focus on this particular location for an improvement project. All right, and that all said, I'm going to cut it off here unless we have another question, which looks like we don't. Okay, great. So Logan, I think it's back to you now.
Thanks, Aaron. So I hope you get a sense from that what is sort of possible with this tool. And one of the things I love about Aaron's work here is that essentially you can you have sort of a free-form way to take a look at your community and figure out, well, I may think that this is the sidewalk I hear the most about all the time, but what does it really mean to repair it or fill in a gap here? What are the actual impacts? And we think this tool gives you a good opportunity to really take stock of what's in your municipality and how you might start prioritizing sidewalk development projects. And that sort of leads us to wonder, okay, we have this great tool, what do we do with it? And I think it, as I was saying, is very useful to planners, to municipal officials, simply as a way of understanding and prioritizing capital development, or any other pedestrian projects you might have locally. But here at DVRPC, since we work at the regional level, we're always looking for ways to start performing some municipal assistance with some of the resources at our disposal. And this is one really great example. So to sort of take a step back here, we've been working this fiscal year on trying to assist communities in the DVRPC region as in developing pedestrian projects. And we have a really broad work program project to do that. And so we've been sort of, Anne mentioned up top, this is really a pilot program. And this is our pilot year, and we are figuring out how to do that. So one way that we want to try, in collaboration with the Montgomery County Planning Commission, is beginning to run pilot technical assistance offers or consultations. So the way we've been envisioning this is using DVRPC staff time and our expertise and among sort of staff, including planners, engineers, to offer communities consultations and perhaps design reviews, other technical assistance to either evaluate existing sidewalk projects that you might have in the pipeline that you may be considering going for a competitive grant application for, or something that's maybe a little less formed, that is sort of in maybe residents have been talking about, or you've been kicking around in the office, but haven't really developed a full scope of a project, whether that's building a new sidewalk to connect some of these disconnected pieces that you can see in this map, or a critical repair or maintenance of an existing sidewalk. So what we want to do as DVRPC, working with Montgomery County Planning Commission, is sort of fit in the middle of that process between the idea generation and construction, and help communities in Montgomery County develop these projects into design ready or shovel ready projects that will be really strong applications for the list of competitive grant programs, for instance, that Anne listed up top. Sort of the occasion for doing this now is the local implementation grant program that Anne mentioned, the Montco 2040 local implementation grant program, which offers assistance for exactly these types of projects. So maybe that sounds a bit vague. What does technical assistance mean? And one of the ways we want to figure out exactly how we can help you is to sort of touch base with you as municipal officials, as community members. And we're asking that for you to fill out our intake form. I've shared the link in the chat, and I'm hoping, Anne, we can follow up with an email with the recording to this webinar and that link as well. And essentially all the intake form asks is, tell us a little bit about your project, and what's the nature of it? What is it? What are the existing barriers that may have prevented it from happening already? And it's a short form. So what we're hoping is that in the next month, if you have interest in working with us, you'll fill out this form and let us get back to you and set up a time to have a consultation, maybe review any existing conceptual designs, go through any existing planning work that may have been done around sidewalk development projects in your community. And from there, we hope to help you set up competitive applications for grant funding, or figure out what your needs are going forward. So as I mentioned, it's a pilot program, and we really want to be we want to be as useful as possible to you as municipal officials. So we're figuring out exactly what that's going to look like. And I think so far this tool is going to be a really great platform to do that. So with that, if any of the other presenters have anything else to add, I think we will be happy to answer any questions for the moment. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for your time.
So if anyone does have questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask or raise your hand if someone's already talking, and we will do our best to clarify anything that we've been talking about.
This is Derek Dorica. I'm with Upper Dublin Township. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. Thank you very much for the presentation and the developing the tool. We've identified 8 critical sidewalk connections in our community, but with updating our open space plan, we basically want to probably take what your tool in terms of where you've identified all those gaps and really get that on our updated open space plan as part of our connections part of that. Is there, I mean, would we have access to this tool then in order to basically take it for township wide and then overlay that, what you guys have already kind of developed, and overlay that onto our other kind of critical connection pieces where we already have pathways, trails, and other things already identified? Is that something that it's mobile or able to be manipulated?
Yeah, we in its current state, there's not an easy button to just download the data, but we would very happily be able to provide that data to you so you could use it in your own work. It would basically just be a GIS layer that we could email to you.
Okay, yeah, that would be wonderful. So I'll make sure I fill out the intake and then I'll be in contact with you guys. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Derek.
Anyone else? I'm looking through the list of people. I don't see any hands or anything like that.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just put this form into my web browser and I'm getting an error. Is there any way you can send this intake form to all of the email addresses that
Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to do that. I can double check on whatever issues there may be. We'll get you a good link.
okay.
I'll follow up with an email to everyone who registered for today, whether or not you made it to this presentation or not, with a copy of the presentation and these links. And I should be able to attach the form, right, as a PDF or something like that. If
It's a
web
web
form.
form. So the link is what you need, but I'll make sure it works for everybody.
All right.
Yeah, if you click directly on the link from the chat rather than trying to type it in, like freehand type it in, it seems to go directly. And I'm on my phone, it's working.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
go to the-
trying to do it on my computer and I'm watching off my iPad. So I'm trying to transfer it to a different. And I guess my second question is, I looked at what you have for us. We are Limerick Township. We have quite a few more trails and sidewalks mapped that are not showing. So my other question would be, how do we collaborate on getting your data updated or our data updated? Because we're doing a gap study right now. We're actually presenting to our board of supervisors right now for looking for funding strategies for 2022 budget to start connecting.
That's a great question, and I'm glad Aaron brought up walk.dvrpc.org. To take a couple steps back, this analysis is based on our regional sidewalk inventory, which covers the 9-county region centered on Philadelphia, and was produced by a consultant over the last few years. So we know that some data is out of date and we're working hard to keep that up to date, but we need help from folks like you. So if you can visit walk.dvrpc.org, I am the contact person for that program. We have a function under that edit button, which you can see on the screen, to fix data inaccuracies or add new sidewalks as they get built.
Okay.
Because we know once we put this inventory out, construction's happening all the time and things get updated. So there's that way to do it. In addition to that, if you want a sort of more nuanced discussion about that, I'm happy to, you can get in contact with me through the contact link there on walk.dvrpc.org.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
It may also be worth clarifying that trails are not necessarily included in what we're looking at. That we're really just looking at sidewalks, and Aaron and Logan and I have talked a little bit about this. So while you may have a trail in your community that provides connectivity from one sidewalk endpoint to another, it may not show up on this map because it's a trail through a park and not necessarily cleared in the winter or maintained as a 365 days a year walkway.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we can coordinate, yeah, offline on what we have. We have quite a few developments are coming in with, and they're putting in sidewalks, so we can also give you sidewalk, updated sidewalk data as well.
That would be terrific. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
And just to add to what Logan said a second ago, we're constantly in the process of maintaining the sidewalk data. So we have every few months or so, our GIS team will take a look at everything that's been submitted on this walk.dvrpc.org web map, and they'll go ahead and make the edits in our GIS data that show our sidewalk network. And so what we're seeing here is an analysis that was run off of a snapshot in time of that data. And our hope, though, is that that data is constantly being improved, updated as things are both built anew, as well as if something was missed in the inventory, and we want to get that in there as well. So the idea is over time, as that data changes, we can refresh our analysis and put the latest and greatest copy of it back onto a web map like this. So there's always like a little bit of a gap between the timeliness of the data and what we're seeing as the summary here. But we do have a process set up by which we can sort of make those changes and then flow that into the analysis results.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I jump in for just a follow-up question on that? I'm sorry, I got to the meeting late. So in the edits that you accept, do you accept GIS layers as edits, or is it just through the portal that you have to individually respond to each segment?
That's a great question. It's set up in a fashion where anyone without GIS skills should be able to use our platform and give us information in that way. But if you or someone on your team has GIS skills and it's easier to just create a shapefile and send that to us, we can also work with that as well. So it's whatever's easiest for you to contribute, we're happy to work with. So regardless of what you have, if you want to contribute, just reach out to us and we can make sure it gets where it ought to be.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question. John Kennedy with Lower Southford Planning Commission. We're in the process of working on a pedestrian study for sidewalks and for trails. But the data that you have currently, does that also include information on condition and say the width of sidewalks? Because we have some older ones that aren't really wide enough. And it'd be nice to know where those are, if they're in critical locations, for instance.
Yeah, our data is a little, it is not quite that granular. And if you run through walk.dvrpc.org, you will see that there is some additional data, about like curb ramps and crosswalks. But the overall condition for most sidewalks is not part of this, not part of this analysis. And that's it's one of the reasons we think some of the technical assistance offer that we're putting out today is probably helpful, is to sort of, there's some element of plannerly or human judgment involved too. So we think this can be supplementary to those kinds of concerns, but won't tell you everything.
Anyone else? Well, if not, thank you all for coming today, and I look forward to working with some or all of you in the future as you begin to think about how you might want to work on sidewalks in your communities. And I look forward to maybe even seeing some of your Montco 2040 grant applications early next year. But I will, as promised, follow up with all of the information that we have put out there today. And that's it from me.
Thanks for having us, Anne. And we're really happy to be working on this collaboration. We hope to hear from all of you very soon. So go ahead and fill out that intake form if you're interested. Thanks.
Thank you.